Oh, preferment, business, law, devotions of the great North Shore.
I don't want to say it'll become a slum, but it'll certainly change the Australian dream.
It's a necessary push that we need for the future.
Don't pull down our heritage, our history.
Heritage and housing are not mutually exclusive.
If you're a stranger to this North Shore, you must first realise that this railway line is more than just a way to work for the well-dressed commuter of this area.
On the leafy upper North Shore, it's not just the trees that endure.
So this property, one of the most beautiful Federation properties in the street, it will go.
This century-old home lies in one of Ku-ring-gai Council's heritage conservation areas, protected from development for now.
If they implement the policy in April, just as proposed, then yes, it will destroy the existing character of Ku-ring-gai.
That policy is called the Transport-Oriented Development Program. The Minns government announced it in December to tackle the state's housing shortage and meet nationally agreed targets.
We have 5 years under the National Housing Accord, so there is a sense of urgency here.
The program is set to rezone land around 39 transport hubs to increase housing density, with the first stage starting in late April.
Are you a NIMBY? Absolutely not. I support, as do most of the residents around here, the government's policy objectives of increased density. We all have children. We want to see our children live in Sydney as well. All we're saying is don't mindlessly draw concentric circles around a railway station without reference to what is there.
Land within a 400-metre radius of stations is set to be rezoned for mid-rise apartment buildings. 4 of these precincts sit within the Ku-ring-gai local government area. Almost half of the homes inside the radii are subject to council heritage protections. Last month, the council lodged a submission against the reforms.
And it doesn't make sense to us when there are other stations closer to the city.
Across the road from Gordon Station are low-rise buildings. The proposed planning controls would allow these to be replaced with apartment blocks rising as high as 21 metres. That's 6 to 7 stories, depending on the height of each level.
Just because a building is 6 stories tall doesn't mean that it's not appropriate for a heritage conservation area.
Down the railway line in Roseville, empty nester Rex Chadwick has already received several letters from developers interested in buying his house.
The danger is if one goes, then you have the domino effect. Everybody goes.
With all these buildings going up, I think it would probably take away from the uniqueness of the area.
Long-time locals may remember a similar battle in the 2000s that played out on a previous incarnation of State Line.
We've got to get more densities. Do you accept that we have to have more densities?
We have never been anti-development.
We have to accommodate 1 million people within the next 20 to 25 years. You accept that?
And you don't have to do that by destroying the advantages this city has.
But not all North Shore dwellers oppose the plan.
I do not see how I can afford to live in Ku-ring-gai near my family and an area where I've lived for most of my life now.
Michael Claydon is of a generation increasingly shut out of the housing market because of low supply and high prices. He says, yes in my backyard to development.
Councils have been dragging their feet, especially Ku-ring-gai.
I do believe that it's a bit selfish to live in a big home with a giant big backyard when you could have multiple dwellings.
Under the national agreement, the state government has committed to delivering more than 300,000 new homes by 2029. 8 Sydney locations have been designated accelerated precincts. High and mid-rise housing will be permitted within 1,200 metres of rail and metro stations there. Among those is Hornsby.
A lot of this broad brush approach has the capacity to provoke very significant problems for the local community. You can put increased density in areas which are prone to bushfires. Is that a good idea?
Some Labor mayors have spoken out against the government's approach to densification.
The fact that they haven't consulted with anyone is really getting people offside.
Despite Penrith's mayor publicly backing Chris Minns last month,
we all have to do our heavy lifting, not just Western Sydney.
Penrith Council ultimately decided not to support another plank of the planning reforms. That is, the rezoning of land less than an 800-metre walk from stations and town centres for low and mid-rise housing. The changes are expected in the middle of the year and would cover much of the inner west, including historic Haberfield.
The first houses in the Stanton subdivision of Haberfield went on sale in 1901, the year of Australia's federation.
The entire suburb is a heritage conservation area.
They are all worthwhile saving.
Will there be anything to prevent a building of historical significance from being demolished?
Absolutely. I mean, to suggest otherwise is completely unfair, completely untrue.
So who will get to decide what's worth keeping and what's not?
Well, councils will still be able to make that decision.
Councils are not convinced.
The advice that all local councillors have received from their staff is that the government's rezoning proposals will supersede the council's heritage controls.
That is not correct. The heritage controls that remain in a council's development control plan remain.
Still, the density debate remains as evergreen as the old trees north of the bridge. Alexander Lewis, ABC News, Sydney.